Good morning and welcome to I Hate Music. Today I have Pete Lee from Lawnmower Deth with me. How you doing, man?
I'm really good. Good evening.
Yeah, good
Let's
good
get
morning
these
to
time
you.
zones right, Jace. Good evening.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah.
Really, really, really good to see you.
It's good to see you, man. It's been quite a while. It's been probably 5 or 6 years since we've seen each other in the flesh,
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
good. I'd have gone for 4, but my wife will tell you my memory's not a good thing. So it's
well,
you're probably right because you're younger than I am. Yeah, it's been a
Not
while,
by much,
hasn't
but
it?
yes.
Other than
It's-
virtual communication, it's been a long time since I've seen you.
It's been a long time. That was Bloodstock of
Yeah.
a few years ago. That was much
what
fun.
fun it was.
That was great. Actually, I mean, I've told you this at length, but one of the highlights of my musical career and my life is to join you on stage as the sheep that got dipped.
And you're just too kind.
I am too kind, but it's also true. Been a massive Lawnmower fan ever since I discovered Lawnmower, 91, 92.
Okay.
Well, you would know, Grindcrusher comp.
Yeah. Well, Grindcrusher was a bit earlier than that, wasn't it? Probably Grindcrusher
Was it?
about 89, I think.
89?
Yeah.
I don't think I discovered it right away then. I would have discovered it maybe a little bit later, being in the rural Montana land. But yeah, I mean, that was a standout track on Grindcrusher for me. And what a legendary comp. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
That's-
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Grindcrusher? Because it's I think it puts certain bands into an arena where we wouldn't have been known about. We were definitely one. I suspect OLD were one of those. Because they were on there, and you know, people knew about your sort of Napalm Death and your kind of Carcasses coming through and stuff like that.
Sure.
Probably didn't know about Filthy Christians.
or Spastic Blur.
And a lot of people have said that was possibly their first exposure to us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it definitely was. And I was just getting into, I've been into earache bands and death metal for a few years at that point, but, not the deep cuts. Like I knew the Morbid Angels and the Carcasses and the Entombed and things like that. But Lawnmower was it was so unique and so different. I mean, I think you guys and Naked City were the ones that really just stood out on that comp, you know.
Naked City still makes my ears hurt.
Oh yeah, I love Naked City. Yeah, it's great. But I remember hearing that track. It was Satan's Trampoline, and I mean, again, I can't stress how important that compilation was for exposing people to different bands, especially if you weren't, like you said, if you weren't in that arena. Growing up in a farming town, basically in rural Montana, I mean, that exposed me to so many different things. And then it was right after that, I feel like Headbangers Ball on MTV played a video for Satan's Trampoline. And then I was just hooked. Am I remembering that correct? Is there a video for Satan's Trampoline?
Did a video for, wasn't it?
Kids in America.
That would have been the one with the video. And
you're right. There's hay bales involved, if I remember.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That's the Kids in America video, and then there was another sort of later on the next album. But I'm kind of with you on the importance of Grindcrusher. I think the tour was really important.
Oh yeah,
as a tour, the Grindcrusher tour was different level.
Sure,
because I'd been seeing some of those early bands, because Earache was Nottingham based, and as a band we were Nottingham based. So we'd had really the first time I saw Napalm Death was there wasn't even a stage; it was just a small room and they were playing on the floor, and everybody just thought it was a joke band.
Sure,
because there were longer breaks than there were songs. They just sort of stood there doing 10-second blast beat songs, and they were sporting DRI. It was DRI, Holy Terror, and Napalm Death. That's what it was, and that's the first time I'd seen them. But I think the Grindcrusher album exposed everything, and then the Grindcrusher tour over here stopped it from being that sort of crust scene kind of anomaly stuff to suddenly it was playing major venues. It was the first time Morbid Angel had been over, and I guess of all the bands on that, they were probably the most I don't mean proficient in that way, but I guess technically they were the most advanced. But it's suddenly all the thrash kids were going to see Napalm Death and Bolt Thrower. And before it was all the punks and the crust kids were going to see Napalm Death and Bolt Thrower.
That makes sense.
And you're seeing that shift from change at that point, I think.
Yeah.
So it was really, really interesting to watch.
So when you're saying you're seeing Napalm, is that like Justin Broderick era?
No, it wasn't quite that early. No, it was the classic lineup. So, it was Bill looking about 3 years old, and Mick Harris, and Shane hadn't even started growing hair. So It was a really, really early incarnation of that. It's not Mark 1, is it? I guess it was Mark 2, Napalm Death, I suppose. But the classic Lee Dorry and Bill Steele.
Yeah. That's great. I just saw Napalm on Sunday.
Oh, cool.
And and I've seen them a few times in the past. But
better now than ever,
than what you saw. Yeah, they're still great, still filled with energy. They played some classic tracks off of Scum and Harmony Corruption, and I'm kind of a Harmony Corruption guy myself, so I was very excited to hear them.
Children's always a go-to, isn't it?
Yeah. Stuff for the Children, Vision Conquest, great stuff. They played well.
We did a couple of shows with them about 2 years ago before all this shenanigans that we've had of lockdowns and stuff like that. And we did a couple of festivals, and I hadn't seen them for ages. I hadn't seen them since the Earache days.
Wow!
And he was like bumping into somebody you'd seen 10 minutes ago. So really good catch up with Barney and Shane.
That's great.
They were fantastic. They were just brilliant that night.
Yeah, they were the same the other night, just filled with energy. Felt like they were just on top of their game, and it's been over 30 years later,
and still important, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And they're definitely not reinventing the wheel. They're doing stuff that they haven't done in the past.
They're doing what you want them to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, enough about Napalm.
Talk about Napalm all night. That's much nicer than talking about me.
I don't know. I do love Napalm Death, but I would really like to talk about Lawnmower Deth.
Okay.
My two favorite deaths. So I want to talk a little bit about, before I get into the new album, I want to talk a little bit about what happened between, I'm going to have the years wrong, but let's say what happened between mid-90s to mid-2000s.
It's about right. It's end of 93 is when it finished. And I think we started again in 2010. 2009. Okay. 2009.
What
happened in the middle is very simple, I think. We when Billy came out, Billy didn't sound to us like Billy sounded to us in the studio. It's the first thing. So it was a lot more. It was a lot more raw in the studio, and it definitely. I mean, there's no denying. We'd gone off down the punk route, but it didn't sound as polished and as clean as it came out, and consequently, everybody, hated it, which is great. Very timely, given the name of your podcast. But literally, people hated, what we'd done, with a few exceptions, and we went. Do you know what? Fair enough. We've had a reasonable run. We'll call it quits. We're old friends. There's no point in falling out about anything. It was simply we thought, you know what? We were never going to be the next Metallica. You call yourself Lawnmower Deth. You're not born for longevity.
Right.
It's done its thing. It's burnt out. Joke's over. And that was it. So we just stopped. With no desire ever to do it again, really, or to do anything again creatively, or to make music, or certainly to gig or anything like that. And as you can imagine, over the years, you get the offers, and you'll know as well as I do. It tends to be when you've gone over one step like that, the offers come, but they're really awful. in the nicest and I'm getting people phoning up saying, will you play my birthday party or something like that, and just no.
Will you play my birthday party?
Yeah, I'll play
My
your
birthday's in
birthday party.
January.
That's a different
You come over?
But, it's,
Amazing.
It'd be a nice trip. But,
Yeah, it'd be great.
but that was it. We were done. And so we did what everybody does in life. There's no surprises. I got married. I had kids. We all worked. And we grew up in life because that's what you do, and it's good you do that as well. By the way, it's it's not a bad thing.
Definitely.
It's all part of it. So that's what we did. We just we're friends, so we're always still in touch. We'd never gone anywhere. It's just that we didn't exist as a band. And then what happened was the phone call came to say would we open up for Bullet for My Valentine. And I don't know what they're like over there in terms of size or anything like that. But over here, this was going to be their biggest ever UK show. It was like a 10,000 seat arena in London.
Oh, wow.
So
Are they fans
it wasn't
of Lawnmower?
a small offer of will you play my birthday party. It's will you play the Enormo Dome.
Right.
And we were all 40 that year. And what a great way to have a midlife crisis at 40. We'll get back together. We'll do one show where we know we're going to completely confuse the audience because it's not our audience. And that'll do. We can say we've done it. We'll all go home and we've got a nice story for the grandkids. And that was it. And here I am 11 years later talking to you about new albums and stuff. So it's strange the way life goes. But we literally had those 15 years off doing nothing apart from living.
Well, sometimes you need that break, I think. And sometimes you need that just that time to process and not be a band. And obviously it's worked out. I know a few years ago I asked you about new material and you said, I don't really think that's going to happen. We'll just see what's in the cards.
Said that for a long time.
Yeah, so you have a new album coming out.
Our thoughts, probably all the same thing, really. I mean, I'm talking as me, aren't I? But, I guess collectively we're all in the same place. We enjoyed the fact that we probably enjoyed the compliment as much as anything else because we're all really egotistical and like being stroked under the chin and people say you're nice people and come and play this show. That's great. But I think what it was we liked being offered gigs that we were never afforded before. So before, we were doing club shows, we were playing with our counterparts. Occasionally we play with some of the bigger American bands coming over and stuff like that. But, we're in the scene as we've all been and done. But the festival circuit wasn't there. And these larger shows, I guess with, the more extreme stuff becoming more accessible because everybody aged a bit, pulled it into the mainstream a bit. Or within reason, pulled it into the mainstream. And so those offers that weren't there came. And we just enjoyed just going out for retro kicks, getting together occasionally, doing a few shows a year, the kind of shows we weren't doing, big outside festivals and playing to big crowds, and having a nice day out going to see bands and meeting people like you on the way. It was that kind of thing. We were just enjoying ourselves doing that. That was good enough for us, really. With no plans of material. But, of course, then somebody wrote a song. And it starts, doesn't it? And the problem is when somebody writes a song, it gets listened to and you go, well, that's quite interesting. Yeah. And then another one very quickly appears because if one's written a song and somebody else writes a song, and before you knew it, there was a massive material coming through, which was sounding great. And then it was, we should do something, So it was quite organic.
Right. So I assume that started with a few years back. What is it? Fuck You Christmas. And... Well,
there's been bits. We've dropped. I mean, there's been, as I say in nearly every interview I ever do, our life is all luck and no judgment. And very odd things happen when you're in Lawnmower Deth. So really bizarre things happen. Not least you and I, sticking the names on the same release and stuff like that. But
exactly.
But really strange things happen to me. We get partnered with Kim Wilde. And so we did the Fuck You Christmas single with Kim. And what led into that was before that, the BBC over here as our biggest sort of national radio station. We ended up doing a jingle for their big show because of a really bizarre circumstance where we got put in with them, and in the end we told them one of their jingles was shit and we'd give them a new jingle, which we didn't. We got played on national radio, God knows how many times a week as part of the show. So all these little bits were coming out, which were all great fun, but were just kind of isolated things.
Sure,
So those bits were there, but the needing that entire wealth of it, or by wealth, but 20 odd minutes or something of material, wasn't in our line of sight until it started to happen, and then it grew that way.
Right.
So.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that totally makes sense. It sounds like it happened very organically. The Kim Wilde thing.
That's the bottom line, Jason. We are
like
notoriously lazy. And it takes something like that for something else to happen.
Sure.
And once one thing happens, it's like little dominoes going over, isn't it? You knock one over and the next one goes and the next one goes. And then it all kind of falls into place quite naturally.
Right.
No point did anybody say, I've got a really great idea. Let's write an album. We'll release it on this label and we'll do it this way.
Yeah.
That was never a thought.
Right.
We just make it up as we go along.
Yeah. Well, nothing wrong with that. Speaking of the new album, it comes out. When does it come out?
It comes out January. Although January. It's got a really odd split because of the manufacturing issues in the music industry.
Sure.
So it officially comes out the 28th of January. So that will be all good streaming sites. I believe there are several. And it comes out on CD. But the vinyl is about 5 months later because of the manufacturing issues in the industry. So, But that's us and everybody else, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
It's a
the
really
delays are
weird
really bad.
Thing. But
it's really weird.
Very early in the new. It could have come out earlier, I guess, but the label wanted to hold back until the Yuletide festivities were out of the way, and that's okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I think the holidays are kind of notoriously bad for releasing anything new.
It saves me going up against Mariah Carey, doesn't it? I'm sure that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Well, maybe next time you can do a song with Mariah Carey.
Well, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Why not?
Yeah. So the new album, January 28th, it's the day before my birthday. So you're going to be celebrating the release day at my house, playing for my birthday too.
How great is that? I'm deeply honored.
Yeah. It's called Blunt Cutters. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I think we should listen to the first single off of that.
Let's do it.
That album. All right. You wanna tell me what it's called and lead into it, and then I'll play it.
Yeah. So the first single, there's going to be two, but this is the first one. It's called Death, Maim, Kill.
We are looking at how to pronounce this name from Greek mythology and the ancient Greek religion and myth. He is the god of the dead and the king of the underworld, with which his name becomes synonymous. How do you go about pronouncing it? Hades. You do want to stress on the first syllable, the hey syllable. Hades. Hades, god of the dead. Hades, did you get it?
Kill a grace, and wants to kill. Your
lots of fun, lots of death, lots of killing.
A bit of maiming.
Just a touch. All right, Pete, that was awesome, man. I have had the pleasure of listening to the record, and I enjoy it very, very much.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear Lawnmower Deth again in 2021, especially after, that's been
a long time.
What? That's been almost
How
a
good's your
30-year
maths?
break.
Yeah.
My maths are not good at
Yeah.
8:26 a.m.
Yeah. It's best part of 28 years, I think, isn't it, between releases?
Oh my God!
We are
In between releases.
prolific in terms of output, aren't we? At this point,
You certainly are.
you
really
seem to
amazing.
release something about once every 3 days, and I release
that's my
something
schedule.
once every 28 years.
I thought Mr. Bungle was bad, every 4 years and then taking a break. But
No. Those young crazy kids in Bungle releasing stuff every 4 years.
28 years. Wow.
It's insane, isn't it?
That is,
I know.
it is insane. I want to talk about Billy for a second.
Okay.
Because I love Billy. Billy is, when that came out, it was definitely a surprise for me. But me and my friends listened to that nonstop for years. There's something about it that just, to me, it was Lawnmower, but a different side of Lawnmower, basically. And I definitely see what you mean about it being, polished and not very raw and whatever. But man, it's so catchy. Songs like "Do You Want to Be a Chuff Core?"
Yeah.
It's just, and some of the melodies, the hooks on there, the playing's fantastic. Your singing is top notch. Just absolutely love that record. But one thing that's always puzzled me is Billy Milano? No. Okay.
It's the short answer to that.
I didn't think so.
The one on the other album's about Billy Milano. So we did write a song about Billy.
You fat bastard.
Yeah. Well, at that point, there's a reason for that. I'll tell you the reason. I don't think I've ever told anybody this, but Steve met him one night in a nightclub and went up and said hello.
Okay.
And he was so obnoxious to him that.
I imagine.
Fuck you then, Billy, because, we were genuine fans of where he was coming from, and he was so obnoxious about it that we just, whatever. So, you get Danny Lilker, who's just a lovely, lovely guy, and then you got Billy on the flip side. So, we were, 19 years old. What are you going to do? You're going to write a rude song about somebody then, aren't you? So,
of course.
So that was about, but no, Billy's just a nondescript. Billy's what we call people whose names we can't remember. So, if I ever call you Billy, it's because it becomes Billy Customer, Billy Punter, Billy Bloke in the T-shirt. It's just people whose names we can't associate. So it's a nondescript person, Billy. That's what Billy is.
That's so, man, it's so funny because that has literally been a question in my mind since 93.
We've always really rudely called our audience Billies. It's always been, Billy in the crowd, Billy over there. Because you've not got a clue who they are. So just that's what Billy is.
Great.
It's a nondescript.
That's so cool. So that lends itself into the cover then. The little nondescript boy on the cover.
Nobody knows who he is, do they? That was just cool. The whole thing had moved, hadn't it? I guess it was. There's a couple of reasons for Billy. I think Paddy wasn't in the band and Kev was, and Kev's a really great guitarist and a really good melody guy. So Kev was part of the process. Myself and Chris Flint, the drummer, particularly at that point, we'd always gone to hardcore shows anyway. Whether it was more the crust side and we're going to see, diss somebody or other, or a Concrete Socks,
some diss
or
band.
one of those kind of bands. It's either that, but really into bands like Circle Jerks, really into bands like DI, really into all that kind of scene that was going on. And then the more melodic stuff was starting to show at that point. I guess Bad Religion was coming on the radar over here and stuff like that. we were, because we were young, we were really, really influenced by that stuff. So that's us just being fanboys, really. So I think that's why most of that stuff happened. But it was fun. It was fun stuff to play as well, because it wasn't.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't all out thrash. It was, it was a bit more song structured. It was good and bouncy. It was good fun to play and stuff like that. So all those things, but the imagery changed, partially because of the music. But we're joking about this the other night. Dan Seagrave was obviously the guy who did all our artwork up until that point.
Right.
And when you look at Dan's legacy, we knew Dan as a school kid. So we went to school with Dan. He was a friend of my girlfriend's at the time. And so we knew him as a school kid. And he used to do flyers for us for the early gigs. And we'd be in the pub and we'd say, "Oh, Dan, just draw on this piece of paper, will you? We'll use it as a flyer for a gig." And then he became, the #1 artist in metal kind of thing. Those things were probably worth a fortune. And we had them on the back of a napkin in a pub. And just printed a few up as flyers. So he did all our artwork, but by that point, he'd have cost you a lot of money to do your artwork. And so I guess money was one thing, and everybody was using him if they got the word death in the names, or if they were German, or if they were American. Everything had a Seagrave piece of artwork on it. Definitely. And we just went for a change. So I guess the whole thing looked different at that point.
Yeah, well, it was drastically different. I mean, going from Bozo Clowns to Billy, it's huge. I mean, I still hear the lawnmower in it, like I said, but it's...
See, to us, it wasn't... If you go back to... I tend to blank from a memory the Split album, but you get to Crikey. I think Crikey is quite a punk album. I think most of us think that.
For sure.
It's got a lot of raw punk riffage on it. And so on. And Clowns has definitely got a bit more technicality, and it's got twin lead brakes on it and stuff like that, so it's definitely got a more metal edge to it. But I think Crikey pretty much set the stall out. I know a lot of people don't like the term punk metal, but I think that pretty much sums up where we are. We're probably a good band in a both. And Billy, I guess, is just more punk than metal, but if it hadn't sounded quite so polished, it would probably have not stuck out quite so much.
I think you're probably right.
But I think the production had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Again, that was just a record that I listened to all the time. And actually, I still listen to it probably a few times a year. I was able to track down a vinyl copy on Amazon.
See, it's strange because even over here, when we play shows, because we play Billy stuff live, it doesn't sit out that far in the set. It sits in quite nicely. But the stuff people ask for more so than anything live is stuff off Billy. And it's one of those albums people have grown into, actually.
Yeah.
I think eventually they forgave us for it and then decided they liked it. But it took them 30 years to do that.
That definitely happens. If you had a standout track for me to play on this episode from Billy, what would it be?
I'd play Stomach Gout, mainly because I don't sing
Stomach
on that
Gout.
bit. I just love that as an intro. I just think it's just a killer lick of an intro, that song.
Awesome.
Really,
okay, let's listen to that now.
That one sits out quite strongly for me on the album.
Cool. Let's check it out now. thanks, Pete. That was great. Yeah, enough about Billy. Let's talk about the new record a little bit, some more. Do you have any, I mean, I know that it's not released yet. I don't want to give away too much, but do you have any, like, are there any concepts behind this record? From a fan standpoint, I could see some, I don't want to say like standard Lawnmower things, but I saw some definite, I guess, themes that kind of throw back to earlier records as far as like maybe some characters would go. I mean, are there like any specific like themes or ideas with the new record?
That's this non-deliberate, we are lazy and we don't think things through thing coming through again here. What you've got is the personalities of the band. You've always got that with Lawnmower. And so what tends to happen is stuff that appears lyrically is probably stuff that we find quite funny or quite entertaining to us. And it's still the same characters, isn't it? Yeah, we've got a different drummer. Yeah. But we know, Chris has always been around us. Chris crewed for us as well as been in other bands. So, we've always been with Chris. So he's, still part of the family. So what you've got is that continuation of personalities coming through. So, I'm not going to write lyrics about, walking over the glaciers in Norway looking for the midnight sun, because that's not me. It's just not going to work, is it? So when either I drop some lyrics down or Chris Bill and the drummer's written quite a few of the lyrics this time as well, it's just the kind of stuff that if I was sat here now and I got a beer and we were just, making stupid comments at each other, there's probably a Lawnmower song in there somewhere. I'll probably spot something that sends you off. So it's not that there's themes. It's just simply that's what goes on. That's the process. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It does that as well. It does both those things.
Yeah, Spence and sense. Speaking of silliness, let's talk about the stage names for a minute.
Okay, let's not. I'm 53, for God's sake.
Oh, man. Growing up, I knew you for so long as your full-on stage name, and now I can't even recall the whole thing.
We try not to use them as well.
Are you using them for the new record? Or
no,
are you?
Absolutely not. There was a reason we had that. Why did we have those names? It was 1987, 1988.
Yeah,
everybody had a name like that. To be perfect, the band the number one band that made us want to be in Lawnmower Deth was Venom.
Right.
So when we first heard Venom. And Warfare, actually, as well.
Okay.
But, when I first heard Venom, it was, what the fuck is this? It was like shoving your head in a concrete mixer.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, if they can do that, anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. And then you saw the live show and you're like, I really want to do that stuff. But they had Kronos and Abaddon and Amantus, and then you went to Bathory and, you had equal kind of, ridiculously epic names and so on.
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, we've got to have those kind of names, but we just named everybody after a gardening implement, as you do. And that's hilarious when you're 18 years old. Of course it is. And when somebody wants to call you Qualcast Mutilator, in my case, at the age of 53, you're kind of a little bit past it, really. You're like, come on. It's Pete. It's always been Pete. Just call me Pete. And so they were very much of the time, but they did serve as well.
But no longer in use. Which
I think
that makes sense.
People will still attach those names to us. They really will, but we've actually used our real names on the new album.
Okay. Wow. Speaking of names, what's Flymo's role in the band at this point?
Well, he doesn't now. He did officially retire in the most disgraceful way. So his last show was we did a black metal festival in south of England, and then they asked us to go as a bit of light relief. So it was full of like corpse grinding makeup people and us, which was great. And it was possibly the hottest gig I've ever done in my life. It was in some archways, and it was disgracefully hot. And literally, his superpower was to throw up. Which and I thought it was because of the heat and so on. But actually turned out a lot of it was nerves as well as heat and stuff like that. And he just got to the end of that show, having probably exploded several times during the set, and just said, "I'm done. I can't keep doing that." And so he stood down, and fair dues. So he retired, and we gave him a clock, and we waved him off, and so on. So he never performs with us, and obviously Chris Billum is in with us, and it's great having Chris in the band because he's an amazing drummer. But Flymo's still around us. So we've got a show in a couple of weeks in London. Flymo's coming. And he'll be part of the stage show, so he'll probably be dressed up as Santa Claus or something like that, and he'll get involved. You know, he likes to be there, but he doesn't want to play drums. He hates drums, to be frank. You know, it's one of my favourite things ever. I lined up a drum endorsement for him once, and he had to go to the drum manufacturer, and they put him into a booth. And said, well, play this kit. And they're obviously going to give him the kit, and he was going to get to attach his name to it. And he went in, hit a few drums, came out and said, I fucking hate drums. And that was it. That was the end of his endorsement deal, because that's what he was like. He's like a bad stain. He's still around us. We can't get rid of him still entirely. Around you. And nor would we want to get rid of him, because he's a lovely bloke. But he's no longer part of the machine, as it were.
Yeah, but he's still part of the crew. That's one thing I noticed when I was with you guys in England for Bloodstock is when I was getting prepared to be the sheep, you had so many people helping with not only just like standard tech people, but I'm gonna forget their names, but I think one was Dean.
Dean. Dean's part of our crew.
Yeah, he was helping me like with the sheep mask, and he was a lovely person. He was so much fun.
I mean, they're part of our entourage, darling. You know, we have loads of people. We have people who do stuff. Dean and Russ and all the guys who crew for us, they're just great. They're just people we met along the way, actually, and just became firm friends with. And actually, they're part of the Evil Scarecrow.
That's right. Yeah.
So, in fact, Dean is the new guitarist in Evil Scarecrow.
I think I saw that. Yeah,
but they still want to be involved, and we're completely the opposite of everything Evil Scarecrow are.
Right,
because Scarecrow is a very organised, very orchestrated show, and ours is, as you've seen firsthand, is let's just make this one up as we go along and see what happens. And they quite enjoy being involved with us, because I think we're the fly by the seat of your pants version of what they're not. And it's great having people around you like that. They're just good people. They're good to spend time with. And just keeps the fun factor in there.
Yeah, I was honestly so nervous to do that because, again, like I didn't really know you guys at the time and been a massive fan for decades. And I actually almost didn't show up. I was so nervous. I'm like, these guys don't want me, they don't want me to do this. But I did.
If somebody is stupid enough to say they will go in that tank, they can go in that tank, because it's a horrible thing.
My bandmates were like, you have to do this. You have to do this. I'm like, yes, of course I do. So I show up.
It's a horrible thing, isn't it?
Well, when I got gunged, it actually lifted my contacts off of my eyes.
Nice.
It was like, and I couldn't breathe for a second. It was horrifying. Yeah, it was. But Dean was so lovely. He
was absolutely
was like
perfect.
Making sure that I was like comfortable, and like he was like calming my nerves. And I was like, when do I go on? He's like, well, when Sheep Dip starts playing. And he's like, do you know the song? I'm like, of course I know the fucking song. And then I was like second guessing myself, like, what if I come out at the wrong time?
And
and then I ran out, and it's like,
so from my side, if you imagine, because I'm front and centre and stood at the front, I haven't got a clue what's going on behind me. No idea. Anything could go on. It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. It's just whatever. There's some stuff going on in the background, and lots of people generally looking confused in the audience whilst it's happening.
Well,
That's
it was so funny because
reaction.
it was amazing, and it was a nice crowd. But yeah, when I ran out there,
they always are at Bloodstock, given it's the most extreme of the festivals over here, I guess.
It was
or certainly the broadest in terms of the music on it and so on. They're just a really nice bunch of people there, aren't they?
Yeah. I had a fantastic time. But when I ran out on stage, I remember Chris looked over at me, and he was definitely playing a part of like, oh, it's the Sheep. But I totally thought he made me think that I came out at the wrong time, and I was like, oh fuck! Like, did I really fuck up this Lawnmower show?
Chris was in the wrong time, in the wrong place, and wondering what was going on. Anything happens.
It was great. Yeah, no, man, that was so much fun. And then, of course, it was great to get to know you as a person and a friend.
We had a good day
then.
that day. I really enjoyed it.
Had a few pints afterwards. I didn't steal any of your pints, and I'm sure you appreciated that. But yeah, great time. So I know you have to go fairly soon, but I really want to talk about one more thing. I want to ask you about the Cobb.
Okay, yeah.
The Cobb, as an American, that's nothing. Like, we don't know what a cob is.
Okay.
A cob is like maybe a corn cob, like an ear of corn.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was like a made up thing that you guys made up. Like, I had no idea.
Well, to a degree it was. And then you've got some colloquialism in there as well.
Right. So that's the part I was unaware of.
So the reason cob exists is, as you probably know, but others might not know, Lawnmower Deth started before Lawnmower Deth started, if that makes any sense. So Chris Flint, Mr. Flymo, was in a band called Scrawn. And Scrawn were okay. They sounded a bit like Merciful Fate or something like that. They were sort of verging around that new wave of British heavy metal, but into that sort of Euro metal stuff that was going on. And they were quite good, but, they were a local band, and they were never going to be more than a local band. But they did all right, playing local shows and stuff like that. And he was quite an angry young lad in those days. And he used to be so angered that the music papers wouldn't write about him or give him any attention in that band, in his proper band, that he made up Lawnmower Deth as a fictitious band to see if anybody would write about it, and people did. And suddenly he started getting loads of press for a band that didn't actually exist, and that's the reason Lawnmower started.
That's
and
awesome.
As part of that, he started making a fanzine, and it was about a character called Cobshape. And all Cobshape was a skull who hated wimps and posers. So Cobshape loves death metal, hated glam metal. Loved thrash metal, hated posturing, and so on it went. Yeah. So he just wanted to kill. Style. He just wanted to kill posers. That's all Cobshape. Right. It was just an excuse for him to write a really violent comic about a skull that hated any music that he didn't like, basically.
I love it.
And so everything got the word cob attached to it, so it became Cobshape rather than it being the skull. Beer became Cob Brew, and so on it went.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was the reason Cobb existed. But Cobb, in Nottinghamshire, where we live, in our region, Cobb is a bread roll. It's just a local name for a bread roll.
Right.
So, in other areas, they'll call it a roll, or they call it a balm cake or whatever, but it's a cob in Nottingham. And if you look at a bread roll, it looks a bit like a skull. Yeah. So those kind of things all lined up. That's basically what a cob is. But Cobb's just developed and developed and developed over the years, because he started with this little hand-drawn, pathetic-looking skull, and now it's this, huge character all controlling space thing, and we get to do some really cool stuff with it from an imagery point of view, which is fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I didn't even know about the bread roll connection. A few
Just think
years
of a
ago.
bread roll and think of a skull, and they're not dissimilar looking things if you punch two eye holes in it. It's that way for thin, I'm afraid, Jason. But it's Cobb's been with us ever since day one, really. So we're still attached. There's Cobb's got a new song on the album and stuff like that. So.
Right, that's amazing. So, people that are familiar with my work, I started a little one-man kind of project in, would have been 94, I think, called Especially Likely Sloth. And I had basically a pseudonym named Chris Cobb.
Okay.
Because of Lawnmower Deth. So anybody listening that's familiar with Especially Likely Sloth, Chris Cobb was 100% in honor of Lawnmower Deth. So Cobb has been definitely in my consciousness for 30 some years, and I had no idea about the bread roll until maybe 2 years ago, maybe.
Okay. That's usually when people are throwing them at us. That's when you suddenly realise.
I would like to see that. I would like to see that.
It wouldn't be the first time.
When I saw you guys, I believe there were a lot of like inflatable Cobbs or something like that. Yeah, those were awesome. Yeah,
we've had to scale those down. So they used to be, I don't know whether you call them medicine balls in the US, but like big exercise balls. Yeah, big.
Right.
So we used to use those because they were big and heavy, and you could buy them in green. And then we just put a transfer face onto them. And we've got giant Cobbs,
That's great.
Like a meter radius kind of thing. And we throw them in the crowd. And because they don't deflate and because they can't burst, they'd last forever all the way through the show. But the problem was these things were really, really heavy. So you'd see somebody walking through the crowd and they weren't looking, and like bang, and they were down on the floor and there's beer everywhere and shit like that.
Oh, no.
And we just kept injuring people with these things. So in the end, we had to scale it down, and we just made them really large inflatable balloons now. Which means they don't last very long, but it's quite good fun watching a load of balloons bounce around the crowd for a while. And then what all good adults do is burst balloons, because adults hate balloons, don't they? If you've ever had children, you learn to hate balloons.
Yes, my wife very much hates balloons.
No fan of balloons. That's from years of taking your kids out for a meal or something like that when they're 3 years old, and they're given crayons and they're given a balloon to keep them quiet. And then what do? They wait till you're driving home in the dark, and then they pop the fucking balloon and scare the shit out of you.
And you swerve off the road.
So at that point, you learn to loathe balloons, really. But balloons are safer than big, heavy medicine balls, really.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So you have a show coming up.
Sorry, go on. I'm talking over you. How rude of me.
Oh my gosh, Pete, you're so rude to me. Always. Christmas show. You do a Christmas show every year.
Yeah. It was about 2 weeks' time, I think. Yeah. We've done. In fact, I mean, it goes back around to the first incarnation. We used to do a Christmas tour back then. Wow. So we've always had this. Affinity with going out at Christmas, I guess, and doing a couple of shows and so on. But since we got back together, I mean, it's mainly festivals and so on. But we like to go and do a club show, at Christmas, and so we play London in 2 weeks, I think it is, 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Okay.
Playing at the Garage, which is a really great venue in London. So, and we'll see what it's like, because it'll be the first club show we've done since COVID, really. And so I guess it's going to be a bit of a different thing. But I think so. Yeah. But we're going. We'll all go and be safe, and we'll go and have some fun, I hope. So we've got that in a couple of weeks' time, and then back into a few festivals next year, I guess, and see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. It was really every year. I'm like, I'm going to make it to this show. I'm going to make it to this show.
They're a different thing at the club shows. They're really different. You take something like I mean, Bloodstock. We were headlining that night, weren't we? So I guess that was bigger set, or whatever. But normally it costs like, if we're like playing something like Download or one of those really monolith type festivals, you're out for half an hour. It's great.
Yeah.
You can just throw everything we do into 30 minutes. And they're just really great. Whereas the club show, you've got to think it through a little bit more because the set's going to be longer and it's a different environment, stuff like that. But they've got a bit of traction in as much as people really enjoy them. It's become a thing. So people travel for it. Part of their Christmas is going to watch a bunch of old idiots like us make a noise for a bit, and that's great. And I like the fact that's a thing. That's nice.
Yeah, and I've every year I tell myself I'm going to make it happen, and I started planning it this year. But as things go, life happens, and COVID happens, and then COVID extends. But it's still a goal of mine to make it out there for one of those shows sometime.
It'd be good to see you if you got
I actually haven't seen you guys. I mean,
you've been in it, but you've not seen it. That's a different thing. So I'm told. I've never seen us either. But I'm told it's quite a thing.
My bandmates were like, "Oh my God, that was so amazing." I'm like, I actually don't know. It was great for me, but I didn't see a lick of it.
Our core objective is generally to try and confuse people. That's generally what we go out and do.
My my bandmate Aesop, I remember him saying something like, their humor is so painfully British that I'm not sure if they would go over well in the States. And I'm like, strange, I don't know, but
because with the new album, we're already starting to pick up interest over there.
Are you?
And others have said this, by the way, about the Britishness of us. And so. But we're getting to see different things this time, which has never happened to us before. It has always been a very British, or predominantly UK because we're very British. But if we went into Europe, as we used to do, we're very much seen as a punk band over there. So we're out playing with punk bands in Europe and so on. So they saw us really differently, just like an odd punk band or something like that. But what seems to be happening with the new album is. It seems to be translating. I don't know why. I haven't got a clue as to why. But, we did a big thing with Decibel and they gave us way too much coverage, And, because you can see your streaming stats, which you never had a clue, did you, back then? You just released an album and out it went. But, the streaming stats... the US and Russia are my two big markets at the moment.
Really?
It was like Moscow and St. Petersburg are hammering it. And long way they carry on doing that. That's great, And the UK's doing great, but they're much bigger territories. And suddenly we're finding we're getting... So now we're doing interviews with, magazines all over the world, and we never had that before. The French said it to me last week. I did a big sort of indie magazine in France last week, and he was saying the same thing. You were so British in '91 that we hadn't got a clue what you were. And he said, if you wanted heavy, there were bands that were heavier than you, and if you wanted fast bands, there were bands that were faster than you. It didn't mean we didn't like you. There was just something heavier, something faster, or something more extreme, because that's what we're always looking for. But the new album seems to have really worked for them, and they really like it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It just seems to have struck a chord this time. I think probably because we've got some songs. We never wrote songs.
The songs
before.
Are great. I don't know about that.
I think I genuinely, this will sound like I'm being big-headed, which absolutely I am.
Of course you are.
I think it's much more song-based. It's heavier than we've done before, and it's more aggressive than we've done before. But I think what we've learned, and this is down to Steve, not down to me. It's most of the song structure is Steve and Chris Billum coming in and so on. They've structured into songs, so it doesn't do what Crikey did, which it goes riff, 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 finish.
Oh yeah.
Next track goes riff, odd riff, riff, finish, short one, long one, and so on. We just wrote riffs. That's what we did before. We didn't write songs. Whereas I think this still does that. It's got some really big riffs on it. It's got some really big hooks on it, but they're structured into songs. And I think that's suddenly why the US maybe are turning their heads or or the Europeans
Yeah,
suddenly
maybe so.
understand it. If they don't understand the lyrics, that doesn't matter so much. But if they grasp the songs, then that's great.
Yeah.
So I think, I think proudly we've written some songs, whether they're good or bad songs, I don't know. But I think we've written some songs, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, again, I mean, I've been such a fan for so long. I never really considered Lawnmower to be overtly British or anything like that. Or to me, you're just Lawnmower. I didn't really think of it being alienating from somebody that's not from the UK.
I wouldn't have thought that either. You say, I mean, people say some odd things.
Sure.
Like, are we a comedy band, or the word parody gets you. We couldn't parody anything in 1988. It didn't exist. We were at the start of it. So I'm not sure how we ever got this moniker of parodying things, because there wasn't anything to parody. I always thought we were a bit goofball or oddball and strange, and I think that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be humorous, but that didn't affect Frank Zappa, did it? Frank wrote, strange, outrageous in a lot of cases lyrics, with amazing musicianship. We didn't have the amazing musicianship, but we certainly had the oddball lyrics. And I think we just wanted to be a little bit odd, really. We just didn't want to be run-of-the-mill and do what everybody else does, writing about cars and women, and all the obvious dull stuff you can write about that just seems a bit lazy to me. We were just doing something a bit different. There was the characters. And so I'm not sure we ever understood that either. But I'm very grateful people are getting hold of it this time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I hope that this, expands your audience, much more. I mean, I think...
So somebody called me an overnight sensation the other day. 40 years and I'm an overnight sensation. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, 40 years that's not so much overnight. Well, Pete,
maybe
it's been
staying that
to
long
connect
for
with
anybody
you.
other than the UK to have a look at it. But that's okay. We're still here. We're still breathing. So
I mean, I think everybody knows. That's anybody that's in the metal scene. They know the name Lawnmower Deth. I'm just not sure that a lot of people have actually heard you.
Yeah,
at least in the States.
Maybe that's a good thing. If our reputation is such they know us, but they've not been put off by us because they've not heard it, that can only be good, can't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's nearly a perfect storm, that.
Yeah. That's great. Pete, I got to wrap this up. It was amazing to talk to you again.
It's been great to see you, mate. Really, really good. The band send the love, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Send them my love as well. That's awesome. Yeah, send them my love. Good luck at the show.
Thank you very much.
Weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
I'll
that.
be there in spirit. And yeah, thanks so much for taking the time, talking about the new record, and keep in touch. Maybe we can do this again sometime.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, before we go, if anybody wants to order the new album, how do they do that?
Easiest thing, get yourself on Google. It's probably the quickest way. So we're signed with Cherry Red. So I'm sure you guys know about Cherry Red over there anyway. So just go to the Cherry Red website, basically. But if you stick into Google, Lawnmower Deth Cherry Red, you're going to find it. And you can pre-order to your heart's content, and we would be very grateful.
Awesome. All right. Check that out. And you can go to my website, earthandsound.org, to buy I Hate Music hoodies, shirts, my clothing line, any of the music that I'm involved with, including Snares of Sixes, which our guest Pete today has been involved with the last 2 releases.
Buy that one.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not biased at all, but it's very good.
I've been told it's excellent.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I've got some shirts from bands like Disharmonic Orchestra, Confessor, Thief, bands like that. Check that out, and I'll see you next time. And thanks again, Pete.
Pleasure. Really good to see you.
All right. See you soon.
We're out of here.
Deth in sound production.